it's the math man. Hussein's Abdullah coming through from the classroom to the real estate view.
Over the years, I've made a lot of costly mistakes. And lucky for you, you get to learn from them today for free. Let's jump right into it. Today, I'm making this video because for the first time in my 20-year investment career, I've begun to start losing money on certain deals. I want to share 5 of the biggest losses I've taken in the last couple of years because I've had success in the first 18 without really any losses. And here they go. One of the biggest losses I've had to date was an $88,000 deficit that I shared 4 ways with myself and 3 other investors. And here goes the kicker. Going into the deal, I knew it was a bad deal. This is back in 2023, and the house is right here, 604 Moccasin. I committed to purchasing the contract from friends and people that we invest with, and the deal made sense when we entered the original agreement. But the market started to dip. And being a man of my word and knowing that the people we were moving in business with had already committed to the contract, or they could have gone another way,
You bought that deal because you said you would, not because it made sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You bought that deal, or we bought that deal
Right.
because you said you would, not because it made sense. And that speaks volumes about your character. And that's why we continuously do business with you and continuously reach out to you about information, about knowledge. That's why we're here right now. And that's why we're having the conversations like we had earlier. You know what I mean? Because that speaks to your character.
I thought I was only going to lose a few $1,000s and share it amongst 4 people. Even if we lost, it would have been okay. At the time, we were flipping 10 to 15 houses a month, so I could use the tax break. It really was not a big deal. But this is where we compounded the loss. One of the partners said, "It'll be fine. We don't need to convert the garage back." A $5,000 repair cost us the bulk of the headaches. We ended up in contract on that house 3 times, and it fell through 3 times. And the majority of people who saw the home, it was in a great neighborhood. It was a beautiful space. The bedrooms are large. It was a relatively newer build. The main complaint was that they had nowhere to park their car. So please, the lesson, the moral of that story is don't be cheap. Just spend the money. And also, sometimes it feels like it's the end of the world and you want to have integrity and you don't want to let anybody down. But I implore you, if a good deal becomes a bad deal, it's better to cut your losses, maybe make some sort of concession, but do not go forward with a deal knowing it's bad. It will hurt you worse than the potential loss of a relationship. As soon as you know a deal seems like it's not going to make sense for you, just let the other parties know and I guess beg for forgiveness. But it was not worth losing $88,000 for the relationship. Let's move to the next story, which is a similar moral. At one point, I had 6 construction crews going at one time, and my goal was to keep everybody busy. We had over 200 1099s that year and about 60 people that we paid regularly every month. As things began to slow down, the main crews that we worked with, I felt like it was my responsibility to keep them busy and keep them afloat. So what do? I jump into another deal where I felt like it's okay, I'll break even, I'll lose a couple of $1,000s, but I'll keep these guys working and then I'll just make it up on the next deal. I lost $58,000 on that deal of my own money. And not like I put in 100,000, I'm expecting to make 200,000 and I only made 142. No. It's like I put in 100,000 and I only got back a check for 42. I really lost $58,000 on this house. And that house is 808 Patton Drive. With a declining market, which is record breaking, expenses increasing because material costs were rising. And 2 lessons that I learned, if you want to find out what those specific details are, you could reach out, but I'll give you one on the house. I no longer buy renovations with slab foundations. The repairs on slab foundations, when you have a plumbing issue, at least at this time in this video, is between $350 to $500 per square foot. And that depends on if they're working with grass or if they're breaking up cement. I had an additional $16,000 renovation because of a broken pipe. That's one of the ways that I was able to amass that $58,000 loss. Number 3, the third loss that I had for $65,000, and now this is all in the same pocket of time, mind you. Again, we know we had a declining market. This property is 601 Sunset Lane. This is a 6-unit building in a city called Copers Cove in Central Texas. So the declining price, it hurt me about 10%, but the bulk of the issue came from sharing too much information and also using hard money and not having my budget proper. I never really used hard money, and I never been in a situation where foreclosure was going to be an issue. But in this case, I had a 9-month loan. And if you're not familiar with these terms, hard money and all these things, you could click on some of our other videos. I'll break them down for you. But long story short, I had a short-term renovation loan for 9 months. And I ended up in contract. That contract ended up falling through, but not without wasting 60 days of time. If you've ever worked with hard money, you'll know what I'm about to say next. And if you haven't, be very careful. Even if you've done dozens of deals with a hard money company, when 30 days to closing, or rather 30 days from your contract expiration is coming up, you're gonna get a paper or an email. And that paper and email is gonna say, hey, how are we gonna get our money in the next 30 days? And you gotta have a plan. Now, if they don't like the plan, they're not gonna give you an extension. If your plan makes sense to them, they will allow you the rest of the time left on the contract, and for a fee, they will extend you another 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, etc. Well, my plan was to sell the property, so I had no use for an extension and paying an additional fee. Well, the deal fell through, and the team lead for the realtor that I was working with knew it. And what she did was take advantage of the situation. She knew my exact expiration date. She knew exactly how much I had on the loan, exactly what my profit margin was, and she used it against me because she knew if I didn't perform within my 90-day extension, they were going to foreclose on a $400,000 property. So you have to be mindful with the information you share with people. And you really have to make sure you have the proper amount of funds set aside so that you're not in that position. I lost $65,000 on that deal because I was running out of time, and it made more sense for me to cut my losses than to face foreclosure. The last 2 stories I'm going to share with you are losses by proxy. It wasn't necessarily my money, but when I work with a client and they pay me to coach them, if they don't win, I feel like it's my fault. One of my clients decided to go over budget. Now, I'm not going to share that address and that house or that video because they may not want their information shared publicly. But here goes the story. I said we should go with this material, these floors. It's in this neighborhood. You're not living in the home. It just has to be functional and clean. When you're flipping, that's what you want to do. You want to stay within a budget and you want to meet the area. You can overspend and price yourself out of the market. Well, that's not what this rookie investor did. They decided to spend big money on things that wasn't going to add value to the home, and they lost $30,000 on their investment. The moral of the story on this one is, if you're paying a coach, listen to your coach. I've done over 300 flips in the last few years, and this person was on their third flip. They paid me to coach them and they didn't take the advice, and it cost them in the end. Don't let that happen to you. The final story I'm going to share, my clients lost $42,000. Now, I want to say something else. When I say I flipped over 300 homes, I'm talking only in Central Texas, and I'm talking about from 2020 to 2025. We do about 50 flips a year on average, some years a little bit more than less. Now, 5 of the 8 losses I've taken over that 5-year span have all come in the last few months because of the huge drop in prices. In Killeen, for example, the drop over the last 3 years has been 42%. Killeen's property values have dropped on average 14% a year. Now, I couldn't predict the significant decline in real estate costs. No one could. But it's something we had to contend with. My clients lost $40,000 because they did not want to listen to the coaching advice about how we should drop the prices. They felt like, well, we're going to start to lose money. And my advice was, well, if you don't catch up with the curve, you're going to lose more money because holding costs are expensive. And if the market continues to decline, your house is going to be worth way less in 30, 60, 90 days. It's better to cut your losses and lose $5,000 today than to prolong the suffering and lose a bigger number, like let's say $42,000. Again, I don't want to share this person's experience because I don't want to put their business out publicly, but I can share that the people that invested in this property started off with money in the bank and everything was fine. They ended with 3 maxed out credit cards, 0 money in the bank, and are still working to pay off a bill that has been outstanding for the last 2 months. Now, they did everything right and they were pretty good to coach, but when it came time to realize that they were actually going to lose money, they didn't pull the trigger fast enough. You gotta be able to make decisions real time and be able to live with the results. Otherwise, it's gonna be a slow drip and you're gonna hurt yourself a lot more than you would have if you would have just pulled the band-aid off. So with that being said, let's recap these 5 losses and let's run down the morals of the story. 1, you want to help your friends, you want to keep everybody employed, but you don't want to go into a deal knowing it's a bad deal. The second thing you want to do is you want to be educated on things that could go wrong, like a foundation issue that can cost you a ridiculous amount of money because tunneling costs are super expensive, way more expensive than the actual plumbing itself. The third thing is, if you want to try to keep your friends afloat, you're going to have to try to buy popcorn or something from their charity fundraiser, but you should not put your own money up to try to keep other people afloat. If they're not budgeting properly, then that's God's will. You don't want to lose your shirt trying to help others. It sounds harsh, but that's a real situation and it's something that I had to deal with. You don't want to overshare. You want to be mindful and you want to put up a budget so that you're not forced to do something because you ran out of time. When dealing with hard money or short-term loans, you have to make sure you have the proper budget. The next thing you want to do is if you're hiring a coach, listen to them. And if you don't know what you're doing, hire a coach. And the last thing is you have to be prepared to take losses. Sometimes it's better to lose $5,000, $3,000, $2,000 than to try to maintain your profit margin and end up losing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Now I'm here to help. I'm willing to answer questions in the comment section. You can reach out to us on our other social media platforms, or you could work with me directly for coaching. I'm happy to help all tiers of investors, especially new ones just like yourself. As always, if you like what you see, we hope you like, subscribe, share, comment. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Started in New York. Now the world gets to work with each lesson learned. The message is heard from the boardrooms to the schools. He's giving back, empowering communities. That's the real track.